process.
Sure.
Now, people have asked me before in my family and some of my friends and even certain colleagues of mine, if a child were to come to me who's being bullied really badly, what would I do? And so what I've answered them is by saying that I wouldn't necessarily support or protect that child, but I would encourage them to really uncover the reason for it, which is what you've really been saying. So what I would do, which is the same as you would do most probably, is ask them a range of different questions. So I guess my question is, which you've kind of answered, but if you can expand on it a little bit more, do you believe that this is an approach? So asking questions, quality questions to a child who's been bullied, rather than supporting them or protecting them. Do you believe that this is an approach that is effective in being able to transform that whole process?
Well, I got another story. A week ago, my grandson, who's 7, he lives 2 doors away with his mom, right? He's in grade 1. Oh, he's grade 2, pardon me. And his mother calls me and says, his name is Hunter. Hunter's being bullied at school. Would you go up and we can just talk about it? So I went up and they've been talking about it, and he's been crying about it, he's upset. So I said to him, so tell me what, I hear you being bullied. What's going on? Well, yeah, there's this kid named Louis, I think it was, anyway. And I said, so, tell me what happened. So he told me this story of, he says things, they have tables at school, and there's like 4 or 5 kids around a table. And he's at this table. And there's 4 boys and 16 girls or something, and so the boys are often showing off for the girls and all that kind of vice versa. Right. So he says, Louis says to me that I am, how do I get a word for it? Oh, something, I'm a loser. I'm a loser, yes, something like that. And I said, so what did you say? He said, I said nothing. I said, okay. So, in schools, every school now has a program for bullying. So there's protocols that kids are supposed to follow if they perceive they're being bullied, right? So I said to him, Hunter, I said, what did you learn your teacher to do? Well, you're supposed to tell an adult. I said, okay. So I said, who'd you tell? I told my mom. I said, okay. So I said, so you've done what you're supposed to do. And I said, so why do you think he does that? Why would he say you're a loser? And I said, well, I was teasing somebody, and sometimes I think he feels left out. I said, oh, so you were with the girls laughing at you at the table? Well, yeah. I said, okay, so do they ever laugh at him? Well, no, he doesn't tell jokes, that kind of stuff. So we did this big analysis of it, right? And what I never knew was to get him to explore other perceptions of the situation, right? Besides his own, that he was being bullied. Anyway, so we had a discussion with that. So I said, let's look at what options you could do. What do you think you could do? He said, well, I could tell the teacher. I said, yeah. He said, I could tell Louis to leave me alone. I said, yeah. He said, I could just not look at him. I said, yeah. And there's a couple others, he had all kinds of things. And I said, okay. So I said, what do you think you should do? He said, well, I think Mom should call the teacher. Okay. I said, okay. So I said, that's what you'd like her to do, to kind of alert the teacher. He said, yeah. I said, so do you mean you want the teacher to speak to Louis? He said, well, no. So his mom's there, and she's saying, well, Hunter, what if I call the teacher just to alert her that you see this going on, and then she could keep an eye out, and then she might just intervene. Maybe it's not a new topic, maybe it's happening to other kids. And he said, yeah, I said, oh, that's okay. So that's what they decided that the mom would email the teacher and just say that this is occurring according to Hunter, would you keep an eye out? Anyway, and that was so about 2 days later I get this follow-up, and the teacher sat down with Louis and Hunter, and they talked about how to communicate. That's the last I heard. That was last week. So I don't know. He hasn't mentioned it, and I didn't mention it yesterday or the day before, so I'm assuming that it's kind of worked itself out. Okay. But it wasn't into, well, who's the bad guy and who's the good guy, and let's punish this kid, and let's, hug this kid, and that's not part of the discussion. So there's a lot of awareness out there that doesn't get much credit. There's a lot of, I think, very enlightened teachers out there who know that, and but the community is so afraid. You know, it's like I did a seminar 5 years ago on bullying called Bullying One-on-One, and it was for teachers, probation officers, youth workers, and somebody else. Anyway, 60 people came, and they were trying to find their seats. And I said, before you sit down, I'd like to ask you a question. I said, raise your hand if you've ever been bullied in your life. And every hand shot right up.
Mm-hmm.
I said, now, put your hands down and raise your hand if you've ever been perceived as a bully by anybody. Your spouse, your students, the cashier at Walmart, somebody. And about half put their hands up. I said, come on, be honest. So a few more put them up, That's okay. I said, no, I said, it's more profound than that. I said, I want you to raise your hand if your current profession, job you do, is tied directly in your mind to the person that you perceive bullied you in the past. And 20 hands went up eventually. I said, so now you're in the right place. Have a seat. And what I got them to do is I took them through the Demartini method on who they perceive bullied them.
Right.
Well, that's why there's no mistakes. Now, and during that, one woman was, this happened in New Brunswick, one woman from Toronto said, she said, well, what about these kids that kill themselves over bullying? I said, name one. And she goes, well, there was a child in our community last year. I said, okay. I said, do you really think as a professional educator that a child would actually hurt themselves if the only issue is they're being bullied by a classmate? Do you think there might be other issues going on, other self-esteem issues, other family issues, other stress issues? That child was so isolated that nobody noticed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been my experience. I've worked with a lot of bullied people, and I haven't seen anything that was a multitude of factors going on here.
Of course.
Bullying was like the final straw, maybe, but it wasn't the only thing. Absolutely. And she goes, well, yeah, I suppose that's true. I said, well, only you can decide. I'm just saying that's been my experience.
Right.
That we're exaggerating one event. It's like blaming I don't know, the violence with guns on the fact that you have a gun. It's not. It's much more than that.
Of course.
So it's that kind of simplistic kind of stuff that in a sense we need to challenge sometimes, get people thinking, because they're looking for simple solutions.
Of course. This just reminds me of the Amanda Todd situation that happened last year. And something that British Columbia instituted. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's an initiative that they set up towards the end of last year called Erase Bullying. It's an online initiative that they set up as a consequence of that to create this anonymous place where kids who get bullied can go and share their story or speak to someone, and it kind of almost like makes it so anonymous. And I just happened to be on Twitter the day this initiative was actually being released to the public, and watching everyone's comments, all mostly one-sided, which I felt was just interesting to view and watch. And I decided to actually go look at the initiative online, what their philosophy is, what the methodology is, etc. And from my own experience, I mean, what I know is a predisposing factor to being bullied. One of the predisposing factors, at least, is this overprotective situation that child is in, or over-nurtured situation. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to see what their solution was. And the solution is the same as almost many initiatives that are out there already in the public domain. It just was spun in a different way. Is that, okay, if that kid gets bullied, well, we need to do something to support, support, nurture, and protect that child again. And so I thought to myself, well, that's a complete contradiction, because if the predisposing factor is protection and you want to protect them again, you're just going to create more challenges by doing so. And so I decided to email Christy Clark in BC and let her know that that initiative is not going to work. And in actual fact, it's probably going to create more bullies than anything else. And they got back to me, but we'll see how we go. This is why I'm talking to you.
The public agencies are throwing so much money at bullying means that it's got to grow.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to feed it. So it's it's a fascinating phenomenon, because I don't know, it's you see it in so many places, in so many forms.
Oh, absolutely.
And actually as you probably notice, the people that are, in a sense, perpetuating this stuff are actually bullying other people's thinking.
Yeah.
Right? They say I'm right and you're wrong, and so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. Oh, something that I've questioned is the people that create the initiatives are mostly adults. I'm assuming. I don't know if there are any kids actually creating bullying initiatives that really transform the process. And what I've come to discover is usually if an adult is creating an initiative to stop bullying or eradicate it or erase it, that usually implies that they've got that wound inside of them that they just haven't recovered from, and so they're trying to protect kids from their own woundings.
Exactly. They're doing their own stuff. Exactly.
Yeah. So they're really trying to stop kids from going through the challenges that they went through when they were younger, or whatever the case is. And in essence, it just perpetuates the cycle.
Yeah. Well, if you follow the laws of nature to their ultimate end, that means that they will automatically attract unconsciously more bullying in their life till they learn that they need to learn.
Absolutely.
That's stuff, that's what's going on. So it's okay. So it's not, it's like when people say, I want to eradicate bullying. I say, well, that's, as I think I said in the book, it's like trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. It's futility, but some people need to take their bucket and try it to prove to themselves that it's necessary.
Yeah.
We need that ocean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my final question is, if you could give some advice or any suggestions to parents or educators who might be watching this right now, who may be dealing with kids who may be bullying other children, or who are dealing with kids who have been bullied, what kind of advice or suggestions would you recommend in terms of assisting those kids on both sides?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that always occur to me. First one is to show respect for how they feel. Because our best friends in life are people who respect how we feel. They don't necessarily share the feeling, but they respect the fact that we have a right to feel the way we feel. Mm-hmm. So very often, I think kids' clothes shut down because they don't think it's okay to feel what they feel. So I find the thing is just you have a right to feel angry, feel frustrated, feel whatever, because you have a right to feel whatever you want to feel. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. Then what I tend to do is say, okay, let's talk about. I know you feel pain, so in my office I have a pendulum. It's a desktop pendulum, and I use it continually with my clients. I say, okay, you see this pendulum? I said, you notice how if you pull over here, you and I both believe it's going to go back to where it was? And they go, yeah. I said, well, that's this duality stuff. And I talk about that law of nature, and I get them to look for examples of it in their world, so they can prove to themselves that law applies in their life. And I say, okay, if that's true, that it applies just whatever where we can think of. Now, I use dramatic examples. I talk about war and peace and the benefits of cancer, that kind of stuff. I do that with adults. With kids, I talk about, I use child-appropriate examples, but I demonstrate the principle. I say, okay, if this principle is really true, and you've convinced yourself that it applies just about everywhere, then there must be a benefit to what's happened to you. So let's explore a little bit what could be a benefit to you. You say this guy, he come up and he hit you. Yeah. So what did you do? He said, I cried. And I ran. I said, okay, what's the benefit of that? He said, I don't know, I'm a chicken. I said, no, well, some people call you chicken. I call you smart. What do you mean I'm smart? I said, well, you protected yourself. Is there anything more important than protecting yourself so you can have a future? And also they go, well, I guess not. So I said, has anyone ever said you have to know when to pick your battles? And we talk about that. So I try and make it very real for the kid so you can start seeing both sides of it. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, so let's talk about options. Let's talk about all the people that were there and all the perspectives that were there. And then we can look at what things you might consider doing. You don't have to do anything. People do things for you anyway. But what if you were going to do something? What thing could you consider doing that would fit for you? So I take them for a walk in the park, I I said, what do you want to achieve? And what kind of relationship do you want with that person? I want them to respect me. Okay, so what would you have to do to encourage them to respect you? Let's look at options. And I just get them to move from complaining about being bullied to problem solving about options. And I get them to pick one. And so I make it into a very much a problem solving process.
Right.
And I find that's very effective. And kids like that because excuse me, they like it because it reminds them of their own dignity and their own need to always take care of self first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a concept that many people in culture deny. They say, well, we've got to be selfless. We're wired biologically to be selfish.
Of course.
Luckily for the species, that's why we're all here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to honor that. And yet there's the counterbalance to that, but that's a premise that we all operate from. So sometimes I think we in a sense, set kids up for self-sabotage by offering them things that are not really true. They don't reflect the laws of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens a lot in bullying, I find. Turn the other cheek. That don't work.
Wow. Well,
makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. You are preaching to the choir over here.
I figured it.
Definitely preaching to the choir.
We have.
But yeah, it's more important that you share this anyway, because I would love to get more parents and educators hearing about alternatives to the situation, about looking at bullying not as this mass problem and epidemic that needs to be solved with some sort of like drug, so to speak.
Program and a t-shirt.
Yeah, it doesn't require that. It's, my whole business about Be Who You Want to Be is about empowering children. So anytime you empower a child to be who they truly want to be in their own lives, anytime you do that, whether they're a child who's perceived to be a bully or was perceiving that they're being bullied, anytime you empower that child to be who they are intrinsically inside, naturally that's going to just transform the process over time. So, and that's my own experience with it, and that's what I see in the general public when people are applying those principles. So,
when you go back to parenting again, it's interesting when you have parents that I work with who are struggling with their child being bullied.
Mm-hmm.
Invariably, we end up not talking about the child. We end up talking about the parent being bullied.
100%.
When they work through that and learn how that served them, then it's really quite straightforward how they deal with their child being bullied.
Absolutely.
Because they've gained the learning from their child's experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had some experiences with parents, not in relation to bullying specifically, but in relation to things going on with their kids that they want to try and fix and solve and sort out. And every time I've been with those parents, the issues tend to be in the parent, not in the child. And usually when the parent deals with that issue, it just disappears in the child. The child just stops manifesting it as almost like this lesson that the parents need to learn. So it's
that's
quite
what they
fascinating.
get.
That's right. Cool. Well, as I said, bullying, I've been bullied quite a bit throughout my life, so this topic is quite close to home for me, and it's very much a part of, I guess, what underpins the philosophy or the principles behind the business that I'm creating or that I've created. And some of those people have come from different walks of life. Some have been my family, some have been friends, some have been work colleagues, ex-bosses, you name it. Like they come in all sorts of different forms, and I guess there's always been a reason for it, which I mentioned before, and it's something that I'm truly grateful for, and also to be able to, I guess, work with you and to shed some light on what you've discovered and also what I've discovered and how I've been able to transform my own life with it, as well as what you've experienced with the people you've worked with. So, through this company that I've developed, which I've mentioned so many times already, my vision, I guess, is that there is definitely another and a more powerful way to transform bullying and change the way it manifests. I believe that it's really so important to empower and inspire all children to be who they are, and with an equal measure of that support and challenge, which we largely miss out on. We largely seem to receive more support or want that because we've been told that challenge is not a good thing, and or it's kind of been injected into us in some form or another. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences and all your knowledge and insight, and I guess everything you've come to learn about this dynamic, and for also being part of the Be Who You Want to Be community. It's something that I'm grateful for, and the more opportunities I can get to share your knowledge with more people, the greater it will be for kids in the future. So thank you.
Appreciate your kind thoughts. What I think is that, at least from I used to say, I learned more from preschool kids than I've ever learned from any adult so far, except maybe one. And I'm not going to put him yet on something. But anyway, but when I think of in a sense, the journey of the human intellect from, in a sense, complete self-love to confusion and all life's experiences to self-acceptance and self-love at the other end. Well, bullying is one of the tools that we all use to get there. And so as you say, it's not going to go away. We will always be talking about it, but we will perhaps, as we evolve, learn to appreciate it and find new forms of it.
100%.
And realize that they're just new forms that other people need so they can learn to believe in themselves. You know, so it's in a sense, a never-ending story, you know.
It's a constantly, it's a constantly evolving process.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, no, you're more than welcome. You know, I came across your work a little while ago, actually, before we connected. And when I started this business, I remembered your name and I wanted to find you again because I was like, there's a guy and I know him. He's a psychologist, and I want to share a psychologist's point of view because not all psychologists, and most of them, wouldn't necessarily have your perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
So they would deal with it in a very different way.
There's a whole field of psychology that's emerging now in clinical psychology called positive psychology. You probably heard of it.
Yes, I have heard of it.
It's another endeavor to find one side of life, which you can't get in nature, but it's an interesting endeavor. But it's, in a sense, it's going to the other side. Instead of looking at the negative, now we're going to look at the positive.
Right.
And which I think it's an evolutionary process where they start saying, well, maybe both is what's really going on, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. I mean, it's well, once I figured out that you know, nature's law is we seek pleasure and avoid pain, and that process, which is biologically, genetically wired into our system, that maximizes our survival, then it all fits. So it's okay.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's kind of neat. You know?
Cool. Well, again, thank you so much, and I look forward to having more of your stuff, more of your content, more of whatever you produce in regards to this particular topic, or even other other areas that you have very high focus on, and bring it to as many parents and educators and kids that I can through this business. So, thank you.
I'll work with you again.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.